Ready to go? All right, we are recording.
Beautiful. Good morning, everybody. How you doing? My name's Tim Sayre with Canal IT Security. Now for something completely different.
Yeah. That's the thing, is I'm not sure how the hell something was turned on. We had this on. Well, we had it on.
I don't know.
Alright.
Is that better? I don't know.
Alright.
Can everybody hear me in the back? Volume good? Everybody good? Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. My name's Tim Sayre. I'm Chief of Operations at Canal IT Security. My experience, 6 years in the Special Forces unit. I was on the B team. I wasn't tab. 3 years as a combat engineer. Got to go to Desert Storm and blow stuff up after we got done. That was kind of fun. I have a very diverse range of skills. I drove a truck for 5 years. I've worked in any kind of factory you could think of. Overhead crane operator in a steel mill. Convenience store operator. I worked at a car wash for a couple months. Carpenter, union carpenter for a couple of years. Contractor, scaffold builder. Government security clearance that I used to have. Got my letter from the OPM notifying me that I got hacked. Got 3 children, 3 grandchildren. I've been a hacker since 1978. The reason I say that is when I was 8 years old was the first time I took a transistor radio apart and put it back together and it actually worked. Before that, I'd been taking things apart. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. Most of the time, just throw them away. Keep the extra screws in a box in case you need them next time. You can reach me at SecureWV05 on Twitter, SecureWV05.com, a website. Show of hands. Anybody that knows what Top of Rock is in Charleston? Used to be. A couple of you. Well, this is a short video of what it used to look. It's just a little 3-minute video. It goes through some of the area of Charleston, downtown. This was back in, if I'm not mistaken, this was in 2010, about 5 years ago. It was just after the Top of Rock quit being used as a wedding location, and they used to rent it out for events, weddings and receptions and stuff like that. The quick background of it is, in 1968, I believe it was, Henry Eldon was a famous architect who designed Top of Rock, and he actually built the site on a 13-acre site on top of a hill overlooking Charleston. It's on the other side of the river, and it used to be a quarry, and he actually built the house into the rock. It's really cool. It's so cool. Like 6 stories on one side. It's got a round window of solid glass. And here's the house. It's beautiful. And I wish I had volume and you could hear what he's saying, but basically he's just talking about the history of it. This is before the vandalism started, but it had been in disuse for about a year at this time. And you'll see that there's really, the way they built it, it's just amazing. You have to, it's a shame that you can't walk around now. But, you know, life moves on. It is what it is. We don't win them all, right? And the view from out there on the patio, I mean, you can see the Capitol and over the river. I've been told some of the furnishings, like the stuff on the left there that you see, it was really innovative for the time in the 60s. It was really green, super expensive, renewable resources. I can't remember what it was, some kind of grass or something. But the place was actually, he used it as an office as well as his home. He ran a shipping business out of it also. But he had an architectural firm, and the area right there that you see, there were desks where they had different people doing different things. But the master bedroom is where they're filming from, and it had a short wall that overlooked everything. So you could actually look out the windows, the rounded windows that had a curtain, and you could see the office. But in order to get to the office, you had to go outside the house and walk around to get to the other door. Otherwise, he said something about separating work from home or whatever it was. But the next slide is Monsters. Vandals came. And this is what they did to it. All the windows, well, not all of them, but most of the windows were broken out. They just completely trashed a lot of stuff. It's really sad. I mean, most of the structure is structurally sound, so it could have been saved. It could have been used. Actually, some of the people who looked at the damage said that the vandals actually saved them some money on refurbishing it because all the glass had to be taken out anyway. So half the glass is gone, saved all the time and the effort of taking a lot of it out. Actually, whoops. And that's the view from the outside. It just shows the scope of how huge this was and how it was actually built into the rock. And there's actually, let me go back a minute. I don't know if I pointed out, but there's actually trees inside that they left in there for effect. They don't grow anymore. They cut them down and everything, or cut them off, but just having an actual live tree inside your house. The time, this picture is from when we were actually, that's Sarah Halstead on the left, and she's the person who was in charge of the project. She actually called me, and or she put on Facebook, anyone want to help with this community project that we're doing? And I was like, what is it? And Raspberry Pis, so some video cameras. Like, sure, yeah, I can do that. We got the budget together, and we were actually the first day out there until we got everything ordered, all the material and everything. We bought 2 game cameras to put temporarily, just so we could get something out there to keep people from going, breaking in the house and everything. The day we went out there, we caught these gentlemen here. They were 18, but they were from Hurricane High School. And I thought it was funny because Sarah's sister was out there at the time, and the boy on the left, he said, "Don't take my picture." So what do? Naturally, don't challenge me like that. There's nothing, you're trespassing. There's video, exactly, signs out there about video surveillance. Tell me not to take your picture. You go somewhere else and say that. So I took the picture, put it on Facebook, and it's stopped a lot of vandals. We caught those guys. We found out, well, obviously found out who they were, but that helped on the next one. I'm getting ahead of myself. Top of Rock now. This is sad. If you see the tree branch right there broken off, that's where I had the second camera, the one that I never did recover. I'd like to have had the pictures of it, but there's not a lot left of it anymore, and it's really sad. The owners, now, a little bit of hearsay. I heard that they were really nice people, but then again, I've heard from other people they're not. I have no ifs, ands, or buts. It doesn't matter to me. I was volunteering, helping out, just doing community service, basically. I've heard that that they were going to tear it down from the beginning, and it makes sense, but it was kind of surprising the way me and Sarah were notified. I saw it on Facebook. I actually saw this clip. Someone put it on Facebook. Hey, geez, I haven't been out there to check the camera. And oh, wow, there is no camera. So I went out and looked, and nothing there. But after that, it's just sad. But, you know, what are you going to do, right? Can't win them all. The solution we were given, we were given a problem. Vandals were infiltrating the area, tearing stuff up. They want to stop it. The solution I was given 1 week, a budget of $1,000, no booby traps. I did mention, hey, trip flares, you know, stuff like that. We couldn't use that. City regulation. And it was supposed to be remotely monitored and stored video feed. So normally the first thing I thought of was Raspberry Pi, because you can take the little Raspberry Pi. I don't know if you've ever seen it before. Most of you probably have. A little credit card sized computer, and it has a video camera like the one in your iPhone. It's a little chip. It's about that square. You can hide the things anywhere. They have a little bit bigger. They've got little infrared things on both sides. So the whole camera is about this wide, about this thick, and they're just a little computer. So what we did was we figured out I had to figure out how to make everything work together. So obviously the big thing was power. We didn't have power because nobody had lived there for at least 5 years, I believe. And I went out there, did a survey of the place, and the first thing I came up with, about 140 watt solar panel would power everything just fine. We were going to use steel combo wire for the power source because the steel would have been enough to carry the voltage a limited distance without having to worry about voltage drop and all that good stuff. And it was $20 for a quarter-mile roll of it, really cheap. And it's black. It's real easy to hide. The Raspberry Pis with the camera and Wi-Fi, we figured about $35 for the Pi, $35 for the camera. You're looking at $70 a piece. Free shipping. We needed a router with internet access. I think we came up with the router we could have got for $35, $40 for a good cheap router. That's all we really needed. And the internet we were going to, I forgot about that. But the internet we were going to take care of with Verizon Air Card, just USB into the router or into a Raspberry Pi and have it act as like a central control and all the other Raspberry Pis talk to it. We were talking about, we could have done it two ways, and I was going to try to run wirelessly, but the reason I was going to run wirelessly because they had a bunch of spare wire at Digiso. The wirelessly we were going to, it depended on whether we was going to be able to get the extra $8 a piece, or we had to save money and run the wire, use the wire that we already had. We were going to go with the wireless option because it fell within the budget. So it turned out we didn't need the wire. And we also needed a computer with internet access off-site and an external hard drive to record the video because we were going to store 4 cameras, all streaming video to a different source. It was going to be kind of a large file, so it would have been a little labor-intensive for somebody to have to go through and watch 4 different videos at the same time pretty much every day, or depending on the quality of video we would have got, maybe we would have got around with 2 or 3 days, but unfortunately we never really got that far. Then we started noticing that the weather changed. I was up there in March, April. When I went back out to change the cameras one time, I went back up and I noticed that, hey, the leaves are coming back on the trees. We're not really going to be able to put a solar panel out here. We're going to have to come up with something else. So Sarah's brother is an electrician. He volunteered to go in and actually do the hookup from the power line and run the wires that I needed so he could run a couple of outlets for me so I could plug the Raspberry Pis into an external power source. When he said that he was going to do that, they were going to pay the bill for the power and everything was going to be great because then I was going to actually be able to get some methods to keep people out. Deterrence. That's the word I was looking for. Because most of the things we had talked about at this point had been catching the vandals. Nobody had talked about stopping the vandals from going up there in the first place. So once we were talking about power, a whole new list of opportunities opened up because there is so many power sources, not power sources, but so much equipment up there just been abandoned, like lights. We could have paid $5 for a motion detector to put on some of the light fixtures that were already up there, repurpose the things that were there, and that way, my vision was when somebody walks up to the place, they get out of there, they see the signs, okay, they might not believe the signs. They walk onto the property, and they trip a motion detector, and all of a sudden a bunch of lights come on, a siren starts blaring, and I was actually going to have a recording over a loudspeaker, like, hey, you, get off of the property, or something like that. And my partner, Lisa, she actually came up with an excellent idea on top of it to put a big strobe on top of the house so that once somebody trips it, the strobe starts going off. That way, anybody pretty much in that area, this eastern part of Charleston, could look over, hey, somebody's trespassing up there, we can call the cops and send over there. We actually thought that was a great idea. Unfortunately, you see what happened to the house, so it never quite made it that far. But once before everything got ordered, I had to make sure it worked, so I had 2 Raspberry Pis and camera. So actually, part of my time constraint the biggest thing on the time constraint was actually making it work. So back to the first week I had, I'm sitting here on day 1. Day 1 was gather up a list of materials, or go out to the place, walk around, see what I need, gather up a list of materials, get it to her so she can submit it and get it paid for. The second day was when I started actually trying to make it work. I'd been involved with Raspberry Pis before. I actually love working with them. They're great. And actually this derby that I'm wearing, see the eyes in the back of the head, this was for DerbyCon. I modified. I used this work And I had some help from Ms. Bat and Frank the Tank. They helped me try to get it working. I had a little Raspberry Pi with the camera sticking out the hole in the band. I had to put a little hole there, and that's why I put the googly eyes on it to distract from that, so that when I opened up my phone to a hotspot, I can put the Raspberry Pi on the network. All I got to do is browse to the IP address of Raspberry Pi, and when somebody walks by, it looks like I'm sitting here checking my Twitter feed when I'm actually watching what they're doing behind my back. It was really cool, but unfortunately my camera was broken. I never got it to work, so I had to suffice with the eyes. But the way we were making that work was we were using MJPG Streamer, and there's the address to it. It's a blog by this fellow, Miguel. Excellent information. I mean, it was spot on, and it worked great. All you have to do is, once you get on the same network, you can browse to it by using the internal IP address. Of course, the way we were going to get the functionality to get the browsability from the external network, you had to enable port forwarding on the router, which was not that big of a deal because we were getting a cheap router that we could flash the DDWRT so we could enable the port forwarding and make everything work. And the solution was the Verizon USB Air Card. We had figured out that I think that was going to cost something like $54 a month, and it didn't really take up much power. But that was the first concern, but once we moved to the external electricity source, it wasn't an issue anymore. Which brings us to the electricity. We had to tone it down because leaves came out, solar panel. The 140-watt solar panel, if you're in an area where you have a southern exposure all the time, you could use, I think a 140-watt solar panel was enough to power one router, 4 Raspberry Pis, 1 Raspberry Pi in the middle, and make everything work with all the cameras and everything. If you modify the router to let it run off of the external, off of DC instead of AC, because you have to get inside of it and hook the power straight up to it. It's not that big of a deal if you know anything about electricity. And obviously we were getting some news because we were catching people. And before I go on with the pictures, let me think how I'm going to phrase this, because there are some pictures in here which caused quite a stir. We caught 15 different trespassers over the course of, 4 months, 5 months, or something like that. When we first started catching people, they would talk to them sternly and everything, and they would take them back to the schools, because it was almost all school kids, taking them back to schools, say, hey, there are really cameras up there, don't go up there anymore. And actually, a bunch of the school kids, when we caught them, they would turn in the other ones, and they would tell us who they were. So we found out the names of almost everybody, except for a couple of them. And Sarah actually lost her job over this because she was working for West Virginia State University, and she was pretty high in there, I guess, but she was working at Digiso, also the EDC on the west side, not too far from my house. And some of the kids she caught, she told me that they had powerful parents. Their parents were lawyers and thought their kids could do no wrong, and some of the spray paint that we actually picked up it was Valspar spray paint. I mean, it was not stuff you go vandalizing with. It was Dollar General store stuff. They got it out of the garage or whatever. But I don't know. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't remember them. Otherwise, I don't really have any qualms about ratting people out if they're doing something wrong. Nothing that I wouldn't have done when I was a kid. I mean, I wasn't the greatest. I probably would have been one of the guys that busted a window out. But, maybe not. I don't know. I have respect. I have respect for certain things like that. But, oh well. So, that being said, I guess I could show you all these pictures. We never identified these two. But the IR on the cameras, this is what's that, a WOG? I can't remember the name of this. This was the black. This was the cheap one, the 5-megapixel camera. And as you can see, the IR capability at night, it gets some, a little bit worse than the Moultrie. The Moultrie, 7-megapixel. Wow. It has some amazing pictures. You'll see them here in a second. But this one, it's okay. And this is the Moultrie. And these are actually some of the people we found climbing under the fence. Oh, and another thing, the money they were spending up there, it just didn't make sense to me because they had said, now, once again, this is a rumor. I have never actually got these from the homeowners themselves. But Sarah told me, I think, it might not have been Sarah, but someone told me that they were paying $5,000 a month to rent this fence. And I said, come on, give me $5,000 a month. I'll buy the fence, put it up there, it is yours forever. So it didn't quite add up then, but had the way the house got torn down with nobody notifying, it kind of makes a little more sense now. You see these guys, they were climbing under the fence, and as you can see, pretty compromising position when you get into something like that. The camera zooms in really well. You shouldn't do that. But you see them, I thought I knew what they were up there from going through the camera. I thought I knew what they were going up there to do. 12:46 they come in, 12:57 they come out. And as you can see, the timestamp, I don't know if you noticed that, I think this is the reason why we don't hear about these. This is the controversial couple, few, whatever, that I was talking about. I didn't set the timestamp correctly. I set it correctly when I started the camera out, but then I had to change the batteries one time. And I took the wrong thing out, and it wiped out the timestamp that I set. So now we've got a 2011 timestamp. I think that is the reason I haven't heard any more about this. But as you can see, there's quite a few of them, and they were carrying items in, and it was pretty obvious that they were going to go do something. But if it wasn't obvious enough, well, you can see that the last ones went in at 1:21. They start coming out at 1:41. They were in the house for about 20 minutes. And they start going back, but then it gets interesting with the girl on the left with a can of spray paint in her hand. She's painting on the grass. I mean, granted, it's the grass, but she's obviously on the wrong side of the fence with a can of paint in her hand. Then she drops it, and you can see the hand motion of her throwing it down. I didn't know it then, but upon reviewing this, you notice the timestamp at 1:41. Then you look at me coming in at 1:50, same day. And you'll notice I'm looking at the paint on the ground by my foot and the paint can. I missed him by 9 minutes. I'm kind of glad that I missed him by 9 minutes. So that was just one set of them, and that was a controversial set. One of the other things we did was we moved the cheaper camera up to a tree so I was catching people going in and out. Because by this time, that case, it was on the news. If you were around here, if you were paying attention to that kind of thing, you heard about it. So now, when I moved the camera, I was catching cars going in. You see it go in at 7:48, come out 7:51. Not that big of a deal, 3 minutes. Probably didn't even get it on the other side of the fence. Looked around. Another truck coming in, 10:51, leave it at 10:52. Turn around and look, no problem. The camera actually is in a good position that when you get the right angle at the right light, like this one, I magnified this picture really well, and you can actually read the license plate number of the van. And this one, I can't remember, I didn't put the leading picture in here, but they didn't stay but a couple minutes either. Basically, that's about it. That's my son. He's a junior hacker, Circle City Con, and my grandbabies. Had to show my grandbabies. Other than that, that's all I have. And I'm going to put, if you go to, if you want to, any interested in this at all, follow me on Twitter, and when I put all of the information up on GitHub, sometime probably later in the week, maybe by next week, I'm going to have all this information. I'm going to gather it up so that if you'd like to submit anything like this, if you'd like to put your own deal together, I'm going to put all the links and all the commands. I actually had a script up there that if you hadn't downloaded it yet, it would download and install the MJPEG streamer on your Raspberry Pi, but then I realized that there was a place in there that I had a bug in it and I couldn't do it, so I went ahead and deleted it. I don't want to put any bad information out, but all the information's out there freely, and I was looking forward to the talk at 1 o'clock that got canceled because he was doing a Raspberry Pi also. But anyway, that's all I have. Anyone have any questions? Yes?
So, have you heard of the application PiMotion?
Motion. I started using Motion. It wasn't PiMotion, but it was just the Motion. It's probably the same thing I think you're talking about. I couldn't get it to work with the streaming part. I could get it to take it would save the it would save the file on an external computer, which is on the same network, which is what I wanted, but I could never get the streaming to work right together. And when I was at DerbyCon, we were working on my Derby, Frank had actually mentioned that he was starting to use Motion and he couldn't get it to work either. We were talking about. I don't have a lot of experience with the Pi,
so
but
I have
it was
a little
fun.
bit of experience with it. If for anybody who's interested in like a nanny cam or something like that, It's really great. You just plug a USB stick into your Raspberry Pi, and it just, every time there's motion, it takes a picture.
Yep.
So it's a diff based on the image, 20% change, snap a picture. So what I ended up using it for was take pictures of my dog. My wife was worried we were leaving him in the crate too long.
Right.
I was like, he's fine. He's in the crate. We figured he slept all day. We one day of reviewing, we found out he doesn't sleep a minute. He just loops in the crate,
Wow.
all day. So now we know we got to put in more toys and stuff to keep him busy. But
Yeah.
it's right for the Pi. It's called Pi Motion.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, yeah, it's great. I mean, like I said, all the stuff's out there. There's a lot of information. It's you, and let me think. I had a lot of help in this. I mean, it's a volunteer project. I didn't get paid anything for it. The only thing I got out of it was before they destroyed the plot, 3 weeks before they destroyed the place, I went through to retrieve the cameras, or the pictures. One of the cameras was broken, so I took one of the cameras out, and I was waiting to get a receipt so I could return it for the warranty. So the only thing I got out of this whole job was a broken camera. I got an SD card, a couple batteries. It doesn't matter to me because I wasn't doing it for the money. Sarah asked for a favor in his community service, so I don't have a lot of money to donate. I'm not rich, but I have some certain talent and skills and a lot of time on my hands. I'm more than willing to help. Any other questions? Thank you. Beautiful. Enjoy the rest of the conference.